This is Gemara Pesachim Daf Gimel again. A Mazel Tov told him a Simon Ervin Shkeich to all those who showed up, the live Siyam, the virtual Siyam. Mirza Hashem, looking forward to finishing Pesachim, and hopefully then we'll actually all be able to meet in person. Tonight, Shir Pesachim Daf Gimel is sponsored as Chus for Hashem Yidimir Ben Kier Ben Vega Chaim Ben Sarj Lam Sivir Yizel Sar Baskin Basim V'Chaim Zayus Chaim Sarez Yisol Mendel Yos Fetish Shavdei Shem V'Zami Vashem Vega Pir Ran V'Aldav and Idri V'Danam V'Chana Rizol Sol Chaim Ben Yudas Libracha Bas Tavia Musa Chaim Ben Chos Ben Malka Etel B'Seich Sha'ar Avar Moshe Ben Masha Esther B'Seich Sha'ar Yisrael, as well as Chos Zivog for Etel Leah Bas Ita. You pick it up in the very bottom of Bees Amid Bees, the last line. We're middle of discussing what does the word R mean. R li arba asar. When is this R? So we already had 11 questions back and forth, and we had 2 conclusive proofs that R meant in nighttime. Today we're going to pick up from there. Masim Mar Zutra on the bottom of Bees Amid Bees. Mar Zutra again tries to ask questions. Again, let's just remind ourselves, Rabbi Yehuda is the shita that we paskin like. He is the shita that holds it means nighttime. Rabbi Huna is the shita that holds that literally it means nagi, literally it means light, which we said refers to daytime. So again, we're going to once again try to prove these opinions back and forth. And hold on tight. We're going to have 4 questions back and forth over here. Says the Gemara on the top of Gimel Amar Aleph Hama Peles. R lishmayne ve'echad, a woman who unfortunately has a miscarriage on the R of the 81st day. Bishame says you do not bring a second carbon. Beisel says you do. What exactly is going on over here? So Rashi explains that we all know that after a boy is born, there are 7 days of Yimei Tumah. After Nekeva is born, there are 14 days Yimei Tumah. Following the Yimei Tumah, the days of pure impurity, then there are the 33 days of Yimei Taira. This is all the din da'araisa. It's not so negev as man as that, but again, there's 33 days for a boy, 66 days for a girl. So again, for a nekeva, you have 66 plus 14 is 80 days. The halacha is at the end of those 80 days, the woman, after giving birth, after waiting the requisite 80 days, she brings a carbon. The question is, as Rashi explains, she waits to 14 days. Okay, great. After having a girl, what does she go then? She goes to the mikvah, she sleeps with her husband, she becomes pregnant again 14 days after giving birth to the previous baby. Now, the question is, then she gives birth again. If she gives birth again, for example, within the amount of time, then she's only going to, then she doesn't give birth again. You can't give birth within a month. She unfortunately has a miscarriage within a month, but it's a amount of time. Again, these halachas we're not going to learn now, but after, let's say, a month, and there's already an over there, then has the status of a miscarriage, and then she didn't have to bring a carbon. Says the Gemara that if she was maple within the 80 days, if the hapala of the miscarriage happened within 80 days, then for sure she just brings 1 carbon, the original birth. If it's after 80 days, she for sure brings the second carbon, 1 for the original birth, the second for what happened right now. The question is, what happens at the R of the 81st day? Beishamai says you're a potter for the second carbon, says you're a chayiv. So what Beisel says to Beishamai, you hold your potter in the second carbon. What's the difference from the light of the 81st from the morning? What would happen if this baby was born in the morning of the 81? Then we say it's over. Right now you let her bring the carbon. So the same way, if a woman would see on the 81, if a woman's allowed to bring the carbon to 81, so too should be the same thing with regard to the carbon. So he wants to say that the night prior is the same thing. And again, that's the Tumah V'Dair Tikadin, that the night prior, the baby that was born between 80 and 81, on that night the Gemara is suggesting that it'll have the same din as being born in day 81, therefore you would ask to have to bring a separate carbon. What does it have to do with us, what the word R means? Says the Gemara. What's the difference between the R of Shmeini V'Echad? Wonderful conclusive proof that obviously the word R does not mean daytime, or else it would make no sense. It must mean that R means nighttime. So again, that is question number 12, and this results in a third, I should say, Shema Mina, proving Rav Yehuda's opinion that R means nighttime. Basically, the Gemara continues, 7 lines to the top. You would have thought that when it comes to the carbon, you're allowed to eat to the R of the third. Let's see what's going on here. Betinu zvachim, when you have a zevach, a carbon, a righteous carbon, taida nachal yom echad ushlam nachal l'shnei yamim. So regular carbon, you have 1 day to eat. A carbon shlamim, you have an extra 2nd day to eat. Malahalan, by regular carbon, leila achar hayom. That you have the day and then you have the next night is part of that day. Not like we have the night before the day. With regard to the karbanos, you have that day and the next night. Afkan leila achar yom should be the same thing. But then what happens comes on the Torah, and the Torah says, Talmud Loimar, b'yoyim zivchachem yoichel v'machar soneser ad yoyim. And they don't eat on the night of the, or the R I should say, of the third. And this is what's going on over here. The Gemara is proving that you would have thought that the R of the third you're allowed to eat. Says the Gemara, absolutely not. Says the Gemara that just like a regular carbon can be eaten for the night after, so to this we'll have to eat for the night after. Says the Gemara, Yachal, I would think Yisra Miyad, that this carbon that became tummy, you have to burn it right away. But didn't you? And it makes a lot of sense. A regular Zevach, regular carbon taida, is brought for 1 day and 1 night. Ushlamim nechalin, and the carbon shlam is l'shnei yamim, is going to be eaten for 2 days. V'layla echad, 1 day after that. Says the Gemara, so seemingly we have a proof that you're allowed to, yes, burn it. Says the Gemara, no, Tamalaymar. Burn it in fire. So what is it? What does this price have to do with us? Says the Gemara, there it is, for the fact that it says you can eat on the R of the third one. Almar Ortu Shmabina. Again, a fourth proof that we're seeing that R obviously refers to nighttime and not to Nagi, the daytime, like Rav Huna suggested. Tashema, the Gemara does not let up. Or shall you make Yippurim? This is the 14th question, spawning all the way back to yesterday's daf. The 14th question. Or shall you make Yippurim? Mispal Sheva Misvadesh. Misal Shavim Mizvada, you daven Erev Yantif, and then you do Vidoy. Shachris Mizval Shavim Mizvada. Shachris you daven and you do Vidoy. Most Mizval Shavim Mizvada. Bemincha Mizval Shavim Mizvada. Ba'arvis Mispal Me'in Shmones. So you can't have the full Shmones. It's the first meaning of the Tanakama when it's not Shabbos. Chlimening Amiyolem Rishon Vayisav. Mispal Shmoin Asar Shleima. You could daven all 18 brothers. Sharach Leima Rav Dal V'Chanan Das. You can't do that. Normally we would say that what Mispal Shmoin Asar Shleimas. But here we can't say that. Why? Because you have to say Chanan Das in Havdalah. Says the Gemara, so we see clearly that word R meant Alma R or Tashma Mina. Again, a fourth wonderful proof that this word R is indeed referring to the nighttime. Says the Gemara, Tashma Dani Rabbi Shmuel, Leile Arba Asar Baikin as a Chametz Ner. The night of the 14th, you check your chametz, Alma or to. Pretty clear. Raya is a verse elsewhere that says it means the daytime. Elabin Ravuna, Elabin Rav Yehuda, the Kli Alma, Alma or to. Everyone agrees that the R refers to the nighttime. V'loi Pligin is no argument. Mark Yisrei. Ba'asad Rav Kuna, Karnagi. Says the Gemara, the two have nothing to do with each other. In the place Rav Kuna, what they do, they call it Nagi the light time. Ba'asad Rav Yehuda, Kar Leili the night time. Tana Dawn, what does our Tana hold? This is where it gets interesting. My time of Lakadani Lili. Lele, why did not say? So at the end of the day, why didn't our Mishnah say Lele? Lishmamu the Nakat. Again, before we continue, let's just understand what is happening. Marta said, Mark Yisrael, meaning the Machlaik is going all the way back to Beis Amud Health. The Machlaik is Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda, that we just spent proving with 14, 15, no less than that questions. Says the Gemara, there's too many proofs, it means nighttime like Rav Yehuda. What must we say? We must say that each person in their own place had a different word coined to use that phrase. But that is what it means over here. Now the Gemara ends off and now we can talk about moving along to the second topic. We're having here Pesachim talking appropriately. You never get something disgusting to come out of your mouth. Wash out your mouth with soap. Says the Gemara, Baruch Hashem, the more Shari Akar Akasaf. The Torah decreased 8 letters. Order to save writing something distasteful, as we'll say. So again, the Torah could have written something, because that phrase was not such a nice phrase, we'll see in a moment. The Torah went out of the way and wrote an extra 9 letters. The extra 9 letters in order to prove its point. Shenamar, the Pasuk says, so right there we see that Einenu Tahira is 13 and Tamea is 5, and that's what we see that, like Rav Shubin Levi taught us, that the Torah wrote an extra 8 letters. Rav Papa disagrees and he says Teisha, there are 9 extra letters. Shenamar ki yebecha ish asher lo yatar mikre laila. And therefore, what do we see from that pasuk? The word asher lo yatar, that is 12 letters. The word tame, which it could have written, was only 3 letters. So we wrote asher lo yatame, 12 letters, in order to get where you need to get to, and therefore says the Gemara, that is another proof that one must talk with a beautiful mouth. Ravina Amar Asei Vav Ditar Eser, Ravina Amar Eser Vav Ditar. Ravina says not 9, it's really 10. Because the word var is lacking its vav. Really, it's 16 letters. Shnamar ki mikro bilti tar hu chiloitar. So the fact that it says, how do we get this final number? 1 second. How do we get this final number of 16? Is because bilti tar hu kiloitar is 19, and rather it said tami, which is 3, and that's how we get 16. That 19 minus 3 is 16. That is the 16 extra oisis that the Torah wrote, so it doesn't have to just say tame. By a woman it says she sits on the animal. Woman doesn't sit with her legs spread apart. That's lacking sneas. So says the Gemara, a person has to talk that way. Furthermore, second pasuk, you should choose wisely the mouth of one that is cunning, one that wants to get involved. And a third pasuk, of the pit started talking. Why do you know psukim? Understand, it's all touching us basically the same gist that talk nicely. Why do we need 3 different pasukim? Maybe you'll tell me how to be the rice. Excuse me, maybe that's only on a din daraisa, that's when we're allowed to say this. Therefore, says the Gemara, that's what we had announced, what we announced. Tashema, I don't know if the Rav, Tashema. One more time. Fativchar loshan arum. So again, what did we just say? We just said that we needed all 3 psukim to teach us, one more time, v'das fasei parim milalu, and honey mil d'raisa of d'rabbanan loy, tashema v'aymer v'tivchar l'shan arumim, v'chitema honey mil d'rabbanan amil d'am. Again, in each stage, what's going on over here is we're including one more category of people. Again, first we said it only refers to the highest level. Then the Gemara says, no, it even refers to regular everyday talk. V'chitema honey mil d'rabbanan, maybe it's only in d'rabbanan. Maybe in regular conversation, there's no problem saying whatever you want. I'm sorry. And that's where we see that you see the extra letters. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? You just told me by a woman she's never Americas. She doesn't ride the animals spreading out her feet, lack of sneeze. The Torah says that Rivka got up and took all her animals and started traveling on the animal. Says the Gemara, the Gemalim. The reason is because you're afraid. The reason why a woman generally sits on the side because you want to open up her legs, but a camel is a scary trip. Therefore, a woman will sit down and take a camel ride. Or chudever becomes normal. Says the Marvok, save the last line. Moshe Rabbeinu himself put his children and his wife on the animal. Says the Gemara, Asa Misham, you know why? Bnei Orta, her children were with her, so of course it's much more leichter. It's much more lenient the fact that the children were with her. Says the Marvaksiv, the Torah says, that what? The Torah does say that she was riding on a chamar. So how are you telling me that we don't use the word riding in conjunction with a woman? Says the Gemara, Asa Misha B'Yisusa Delilah. There we have something else to be afraid. It's going to get dark. And therefore becomes normal. I'm sorry. Cause you're scared. Where do we see that there's a precedent for being scared at night? David Nami Leka. Like to be scared of David Namel, fine. Said the fine. You're not scared of David? You have to be scared of the heart. Said the Mar, so fine. So we just proved number one that we have to talk with a nice mouth. We have to prove that it's not going to work. So now the Gemara says, 1 second, what was the big proof? That it said by a woman that she used a merkav. She somehow sat and rode the animal, whereas when it came to regular people, it said yashav. So says the Gemara 5 lines down of the Raisa Mila Ksiv Tamei. Elakol echad chiadr not ninu mishtayi b'lashan nikia. Kol echad nafshe mili mishtayi b'lashan kitsara. Says the Gemara, really you should talk b'lashan nikia with a nice mouth. If you can't do that, you talk with a Lasha Kitzara. This is one of those amazing Rashis. One of the themes of this Daf Yomi. What does Rashi say in the third wide line? Okay, I tell you before yesterday's Daf, make sure to catch up. Really, the Torah purposely made it short. It's better to do that way, and also you retain more knowledge. Maybe that's a big part of what we're doing over here. This 30-minute Daf Yomi share. Says the Gemara. Again, says Mark, Rav Huna, Amar Rav, Ambila, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Misham Meir, Leila Mishana Adam, Le Talmudai Derech Ksaira. You have to teach your Talmidim short. But then when he comes back, that's when you give him kavod. But says the Gemara, it says your chaves that she rides, your shaves she sits. Answers the Gemara, so now the Gemara continues proving different stories. You have to talk with blush and Nakia. Says the Gemara, there are two Talmidim sitting in front of Rav. This Shmaitza, this teaching makes me so tired. Like a dover echer misarefin, like a pig, like a lizard. Says the Gemara, that it makes us like a tired gidi, a tired goat. Says the Gemara, and Rav did not speak out the first one, meaning because he was upset that the first person talked without a lashon nikia. The first person just said that katavar acher of a pig, and that's obviously not the appropriate way to talk. We move along in the Gemara. Two Talmidim sitting in front of Hillel, v'chamin Rav Yochanan and Zakar v'amid coming to Rav Yabi. Some they weren't sitting with Rav Yud, they were sitting with Rav v'chamin Rav Yochanan. Chad Amar, one of them said, "Nei ma boitrin b'ta'ara v'in boiski b'ta'ara." Why do you have to harvest grapes when you're tar, and you do not have to harbor olives when it's tar? One step down. Then when it comes to grapes, you got to do betar. When it comes to olives, you do betama. Amar muftachani bazeh shabai Rabbi Israel. He's talking with such a beautiful mouth. He said, he's gonna know how to paskin a shayla. The fact that he's so careful with every single word that he says, he always says everything the positive way in the Torah. Says Marav Veloyi, wasn't true. Rabbi Israel. Hanu Tlasakani, these three Ganu, Chadam Veloyi Ganu Kaful, Chadam Rei Ganu Ksayis, Chadam Rei Gzinu Kiznav Atleh. So each one said different things, but the last one obviously is one that's inappropriate. Says like the tail of the sheep. So they found out he's not a real kohen, which was evident from that which was going on. Says the Gemara of Atanya. What's going on over here? You're checking out if this kohen's a good kohen? We know the klal is that once someone serves on the base of Mikdash, serves on the Mizbech, we assume he's fine. Says the Gemara, Loitema, don't say Shemetz Pasal, Alema Shachatz Pasal. That's just disgusting. That case is different. Why is that case different? So the reason is because he himself gave himself over. Maybe that's the reason why. Because he himself showed he was willing to get involved. Maybe that's why you were attacked with more violence in these cases. Says the Gemara, one more story. She was sitting and eating karbanis Yushalayim. Says any ben nachar is not allowed to eat. Called Rabbi. Well, I know, and I these are Maya Kachana Mishava. Says Mar Mishufrei Shayfer. He's one of the wonderful Shayfer blowers. Okay. Amalei Ravuda ben Beseira Mika Savilacha Me'alya from the tail. Amalei like it light. Kisal is also when you go up, you know what happens. You should tell them. Emalu Savli Me'alya Kisalik Amalei Me'alya Savli Amrila Lay Alya Ligavaya Salka. That what? That's the fatty part. That's brought up and burnt to the mizbech. It goes to God. Amrulay. Man Amru Lachachi, who told you this? Amru Rav Yehuda ben Meseira. Amru Mai Hai Dikaman Bodku Basrei Vashkechei Daramayu. Vikatlu, and they killed him when they recognized that he didn't even know the basics. Then they exposed him that he was an Arabai, and they killed him. Shagla Rav Yehuda ben Meseira Shalom Lecha. Rav Yehuda ben Meseira that ben Esivim Sudaseich Berusas B'Yushalayim. You're over here, but you don't even know that you're out to Yushalayim. They talk about that, what you say, Rav. Actually, no. Rav Kahana Cholash and one more story. Cholash Shad Rabbanan Rav Yeshua prayed Rav Idi Amru Lei Zel Badik Mai Dini. Go check it out. And then they said they called one more time Ubechi. Meaning they don't want him to be so shocked when they show that he died. So first they decree on, they turned the shirt around, then they were crying and saying, "Oh, it's so terrible," and slowly you would get the news. That one who speaks that nicely, he's the fool, and that is again. So all these are a plethora of sources of stories that we saw today. That one has to be extremely careful not to even say something the slightest that